Hi, how you doing? Thanks so much for being here. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins. In today's video lesson, we're going to be looking at pattern 4 of the minor pentatonic scales. So if you're looking about learning the minor pentatonic scales and want to get the most out of them, stick around and we'll check out pattern 4. Alright, so here we are with pattern 4, and if you've been watching the videos, I showed you the other 3 patterns. I showed you right here in G minor. Okay, so pattern 1 right here, which is the one that everybody knows. It's like the first one you learned, this one right here. That would be if you were playing in G, it'd be right here at the 3rd fret. Our second pattern would then be where this pattern leaves off, right here at the 6th fret. Go back to G, so we know we're still in G. And then our third pattern is going to start where our second pattern leaves off, right here at the 8th fret. Once again, we can follow that interval back to the G to know that we're still in that key. And then we've got also our, now we come to our 4th pattern, which is right here at the 10th fret. And it's going to be 10, 13, 10, 13, 10, 12, 10, 12, 11, 13, 10, 13. Going back would be 13, 10, 13, 11, 12, 10, 12, 10, 13, 10, 13, 10. I like this pattern. This one's a really good one. It's got some really cool little licks you can come out of it. And if you follow those intervals, those proper intervals back to the root note, then you're staying in key, you know? What I like about this one too, it's got this little arpeggio in it. If you're playing in G, the key of G minor, okay, G would be here at the 3rd fret. You're going to play the 4th pattern right here at the 10th fret. Let's say you're playing in the key of, F sharp minor. Well, that's only actually a fret down, so that makes it a little bit easier. Let's go with a different key. Let's say B flat, for instance, okay? Let's say we're playing in the key of B flat. One would be right here at the 6th fret. Second one starts once again where the first one ends, so that means that this one ends at the 9th fret, so that's where we'd start our second pattern. Third pattern is going to start where this one ends, which is on the 11th fret. That's where our 3rd pattern would start. And then our 4th pattern would be right here at the 13th fret. So that's what you want to do. You want to master where those are at. It's very, very important. And like I said before, my other videos, hope you've been watching those. If you haven't, I'd highly recommend you go back and watch those because it's going to lead up to this particular video here, kind of like a series of videos. So, like I mentioned to you before, you master that first pattern, get that down, maybe work on that for a day or two, and then when the next video came up, work on pattern 2, which I showed you that, work on that for a day or two, and then the 3rd pattern, I showed you that, work on that for a day or two, and then now we're at pattern 4, and you work on just getting this pattern down real good. And be able to play it back and forth, back and forth. Back and forth. even, like I said before, jump around, you know. And then of course if you use your hammer-ons, your pull-offs, your slides, your bends and all that stuff, then you really can do some really cool stuff with it, you know. Trills, triplets. So it's like this got some nice triplets in it. Double stops, bends, vibrato, hammer-ons and pull-offs. And then know the intervals that you go back with the other patterns. Like for instance, if you're on the first string right here, you know, what's the interval back to the root, which is right here? 3, 2, 1. You'd actually even play a melody on one string if you know the proper intervals. And what's an interval? Do you remember what an interval is? An interval is the distance between two notes. In some of the patterns, the interval is going to be a step and a half. So a half step is 1 fret, a full step is 2 frets, and a step and a half would be 3 frets. So like on the first pattern, it's going to be a step and a half. Second pattern is going to be a whole step. And the third pattern is going to be a whole step, and then the fourth pattern is going to be another step and a half. So you want to master that interval pattern. And I've mentioned before many times in my videos is that it's all about patterns. If you can kind of think patterns when it comes to playing guitar, you'll be able to learn it so much faster, because a lot of the guitar, it breaks down into patterns. It's just the way it's designed, you know. So if you can think patterns, you can really learn it a lot faster, and it'll make sense a lot more if you can get your head wrapped around that kind of thinking. Chords, notes, just the way they line up, you know. Just the way they line up, like if you're making a bar chord, right? And let's say you make a G major bar chord right here. This is your root, your third, your fifth. Okay, they're always going to be in that same position no matter where you play. Like if you play a G major bar chord and you play an A major bar chord, your 1, 3, 5 are on the same location for both chords. So it makes it great. It's like a pattern, right? The notes just automatically line up. Same thing with these too. The notes automatically line up every single time. So once again, learn that pattern, get it down, back and forth, then look at how to get back to the root from that pattern, okay? Study maybe fourth and the third pattern. You know, look at those two patterns and say, okay, if I'm playing those two patterns, how can I enter between these two patterns? Visualize those patterns. You really got to visualize them in your mind, because that's what creates that roadmap, you know. And if the better you know that roadmap, you're going to be able to, you know, move all over the fretboard. Because right now, when you think about it, with all four patterns learned, right here, just in G that we've been learning them in, you can now span the fretboard from the 3rd fret all the way up here to the 13th. Look at how much of the fretboard you've mastered already. This from here to here. That's a lot of the fretboard that mastered, and that's just with 4 of them. We get the 5th one down next time, and you'll have even more of the fretboard. And then you got the whole fretboard really, because these 5 patterns, they span the whole fretboard. So then you've mastered the whole fretboard if you just mastered these patterns, these scale patterns, and you can play them in any key, major or minor, doesn't really matter. We'll go over that later. But just first thing you want to do is just master the patterns and master the interval in between the patterns when you're playing. You know, if you're in pattern 4 right here, say, okay, if I go to pattern 3, what's the interval of that? right interval, you can tell it doesn't sound right. This is the right interval right here for pattern 3 and to pattern 4 on the G string right here. But and it's just a matter of going through every single pattern and memorizing them, what the shape of it is, what those intervals are. It does take some time, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that lets you know where the perimeters are, and it trains your ear, you know, to hear, do I need to go back a whole step, do I need to go back a step and a half? So you just, you know, master these patterns, okay? Even you can even write it on a piece of paper, or I would highly recommend getting one of my books. I have a couple books I've written. This one here, Lead Guitar Wizardry. This talks about how to play guitar solos. I also have this one here, how to play guitar solos. You can find these on Amazon. Check them out. They'll show you all this stuff, how to play licks with them, where to play them, the box patterns, how to read the sheet music, all that stuff. Really help you out if you need that, okay? But for right now, just work on pattern 4. And like I told you last time in the last video, if you didn't see that, I recommend you check that out. Play it somewhere and then try to determine what key you're in, okay? Like for instance, if let's say we play pattern 4 right here at the 8th fret. Pattern 3 is going to be a whole step back right here. Pattern 2 is going to be a whole step back from there. And then pattern 1 is going to be a step and a half back from there. So that tells me that we're in the key of F minor. F minor is at the 1st fret, or F is at the 1st fret, what I mean to say. Second pattern would be at the 6th fret. Third pattern would be at the 8th fret. I'm sorry, let's try that again. First pattern would be at the 1st fret. The second pattern would be at the 4th fret. Third pattern would be at the 6th fret, and then the 4th pattern would be at the 8th fret. And if you practice your personality traits that I've talked about many times, that's how you get it to sound like music. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, bends. And then as you do that, you're going to see very clearly that all the great guitar players use these patterns, you know? They just do. Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, you know? Tony Iommi, David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, you know? Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, you name it, they use it. So definitely work at getting this roadmap designed, okay? Alright, so that's our lesson for today. If you have any questions, let me know. What I recommend is getting the pattern down. Basically 3 things. Work on the pattern, work on incorporating it with the other 3 patterns. If you haven't learned those, I recommend go back, check out those videos, and you'll learn those patterns. Make sure you can incorporate them all together, because that's what you really want to do, is create that roadmap. It's like you're building a roadmap of all these different little roads that you can go along the fretboard and stay in key, okay? So make sure you can do that. And then, last but not least, play it anywhere. Doesn't matter where you play it 8th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret, whatever, and then try to determine what key you're in. Go back and say, okay, well, pattern 2 would be here, pattern 3 would be here, pattern 1 would be here. I'm in this key. That's going to really help you to master the fretboard. All right, so keep practicing, and I'll see you at our next lesson.